God, it's so bright. How you folks doing? Ooh, yeah. That's pretty much my energy level too right now. Still trying to get caffeinated. All right, we'll just get started with some lightning talks. First up, we have James Powell on a stupid but useful tool that he built.
I think we're on the wrong screen. I'm here? Okay, very good. So, hi everyone, I'm James. Hi everyone, it's nice to see you early this morning. So, I did a little count a couple months ago, and over the last 5 years, I've given about 70 conference talks at a variety of PyCon and PyData events throughout the world. And I kind of became known for giving really stupid talks. And so I thought, what's the next thing for James Powell? And I thought, the next thing is, I need to move on from stupid talks and start writing some stupid open source software. So I looked around the tools that I wrote for myself, some 100-line things here and there, and I found a couple of things that were just incredibly useful, things that really changed the way that I do my work. And I put them on GitHub with a stupid name and no documentation, and I was surprised that nobody wanted to use them. So I want to show you one of these tools called PEMV that is a really stupid tool, no more than about 200 lines of code, but has really changed the way I do development. So if you look at my computer, you'll see that there's a directory on my computer called src, and I put a lot of stuff in that directory. There's actually a subdirectory called code. I put all the source code that I download for tools that I want to use, packages, and you can see a bunch of stuff in there. And if you look in here, there's actually 471 different packages that I have downloaded and put into this directory so I can build them from source. And in fact, there's more than just that, because in this directory, I also run Arch Linux on this laptop, so I have not only tarballs that I've downloaded for source code that I want to build, where I want to build something from source, but also things that I want to build from the Arch AUR, or things that my package manager provides me. So there's actually more than 471 packages. The tool I'm going to show you right now, turns out to work almost completely seamlessly for managing and building over 471 packages across a variety of languages. In this folder, source, there is a subfolder called install, and that's where I install everything. So I want to build something from source. I download the tarball, I unpack it, I build it, and I install it. And I don't want to install it at my system level because that'll confuse my package manager. So instead, I install it into this install subdirectory. And if you look at this install subdirectory for something like Node, you can see the layout looks pretty much similar to what you're used to. There's a bin subdirectory, an et subdirectory, a lib subdirectory. And if you ever looked into your virtual env subdirectory, you'll see something very similar. In fact, most of these virtual environment, micro-container type things work just about the same. Now, one thing that makes this kind of hard when I want to build things from source is that if I'm building things from source from Arch, Arch doesn't actually give me the ability to download the source from their package index. It's not like Ubuntu where you can apt-get the actual source. You have to pull down the package build, which is the definition for what you need, and then you have a special directory where you can do make package, and in make package, you actually have to pull in the source for that. And there's a couple of different steps. Now, one other thing that I noticed is when I'm building things from source, it generates a lot of artifacts, object files, and things like that, and I don't want those stored alongside the source, because sometimes I want to know what are the build artifacts versus the actual stuff there. So you can see when I'm building things from source, there's actually quite a few build artifacts. If we look at Python 352, you can see there's actually quite a few build artifacts. These are all things that are generated just by the build process. They do not come in the source tree for Python. There's an enormous amount of stuff. And I want to keep those separate. Sometimes I also want to apply tweaks to the code that I write, usually one-line tweaks that make no sense for me to upstream, because they're just one or two things where I don't like a configuration option. I don't want to go to the effort of actually building out exactly what's needed to satisfy that project. I just want to cut out one feature or change one default. And so sometimes I need to keep track of the artifacts that I have where I've applied some small tweak here or some small fix here. And I want to keep that separate as well. So naturally, what it seems to make sense is I'll use UnionFS. I'll have UnionFS layers where I have the source code at one layer. On top of that, I have a layer for build artifacts, and then I build that third layer on top. So when I build, everything gets written to the intermediate layer. UnionFS just works, and that works. So I thought the way I'll do this is I'll write a simple script that will automate the use of UnionFS. So here I have the script for writing the UnionFS. Then I'll write a make file, and the make file will automatically build everything. Here's my humongous make file. But I don't like writing make files, so I thought instead of writing a make file, I'll write a meta make file that emits a make file. And so my make file will end up looking like this, where I define all the things, then I use make macros in order to generate the make file. Here's me building the meta make file. This allows me to build a concrete make file where I can build everything. here's me building make clean, make all. If I have a second, you can see here's me mounting every single thing. So here's all the things that I can build right now from source. Since it's a make file, I can just make clean to clean up everything. Because it's a make file, it automatically cleans up the directories and unmounts everything. And then I have a tool called PEM. I think I'm out of time. So unfortunately, the stupid tool I wanted to show you, I won't have time to show you. This is why you practice your lightning talk ahead of time. But you've seen a little bit of it. It's a 86-line Z shell script to completely replace virtualenv. So I hope if you're interested in this, you'll come up to me afterwards. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right, next up we have Amber Brown talking about identity and falsehoods of.
Hello. So I was at Powell's until like 11:30, so I just scrubbed out the old one and just put a 7 on the year, and it's good enough. Hello, I'm Amber Brown. Here's my Twitter and my web, whatever. Identity. What is it? What is identity? It comes down to like all sorts of things about a person. Generally, as programmers, we want to capture parts of this identity, such as the name of a person, say the gender of a person, their date of birth, their nationality, among many other things. Now let's talk about names first. What are the falsehoods about names? So, names can change. Married people, generally, one person in a married couple will change their names. Transgender and non-binary individuals will also change their names commonly. Divorced people may want to change their names back to a historical maiden name or such. And pseudonymous people, for example, using pen names, they also may change their name. Now, my name is Amber Hawkey Brown. That is not my birth name, and I severely hate it when things still use my birth name. So you need to make sure that things can change it. What form do we think a name has? Well, this is sort of the common one that we have in the United States and Australia and such. First name and a last name, and sometimes a middle name. This is, quite frankly, completely wrong. So when you have someone that's not born in America, Australia, England, you might want to canonicalize their name, kind of fit it to our norms. But names don't work that way. You can't just fit it into some normal form. They are much more complex. For example, in Australia, you don't actually need to have two names. You can have a mononym, just simply one name. And you can assume this name just by taking it. And that's all you need to do under Australian law. It may not be what is their paper name, what's on their ID, but it is still a legally valid name. Gender, we always screw this up. It's not binary, and it's not constant. Also, you probably shouldn't need it anyway. It's not something that you as a developer should generally care about. You don't need gender for your Uber for dogs. It's just unnecessary. The pronouns that someone uses is also not equal to their gender. Someone might prefer to use, say, they, them, or he, his, or whatever. And so you can't just assume that from gender alone, for example, if you have their ID. Their biological sex, if such a thing exists, is not also equal to their gender. Date of birth. Now, what possibly could we screw up with this? It can't change, right? Your date of birth can't change, surely. Yeah, well, it turns out people are fallible and write numbers down wrong. You might also get some ID with a date of birth on it, and it might actually be an Australian way of writing the dates, and you might write it as the American way. So you've got to be able to change such a thing in the system. Also, historical time zone changes. Because why not? Nationality. Now this seems pretty simple. It's like country is a country is a country. Well, countries merge, countries split, especially in Europe. Countries change hands, there's disputed territories, stuff like that. So for example, someone who was born in West Germany, you might want to say, well, now they're kind of born in Germany. So you've got to be able to handle that sort of thing in your systems. What does your application do wrong? I'm sure you can find something. Django does names wrong by default. It has a first and last name. It's wrong. Facebook does names very wrong with their real name policy, but it does let you change your gender now. They might have got slightly better real names. Every Australian form does marriages wrong because it has a man and a woman. As we all know, that's not right. The only way to fix this is to have a diverse developer base, a diverse set of people making the choices of how you serialize these things, because those people will have extra looking at, I don't know words this morning, that they will be able to know these problems ahead of time, and you won't have to go and patch it later. Don't think you know, because you don't know. You don't have the experience. Denying a person their identity is denying them their humanity. Time's up, okay. Don't make assumptions. End.
Thank you, Amber. All right, next up, we have Yella talking about fun with type annotations.
Right, good morning, everyone. I'm Yella. I'm a software engineer at Quora down in California, where I mostly work on all kinds of tools to make developers' lives easier. A recent thing I've worked on is static typing. As you may know, recent versions of Python have added some features to make it possible to add static types to the language, where you can just say what types your function expects, what types it returns. And you can run a separate tool to check that those types are correct. So a few months ago, I got to build a new app at my workplace completely from scratch. So I decided I wanted to use some new interesting features of Python. And one of those was typing. It also seemed like a good way to ensure that the code quality of this new app would stay good over time. So it actually turned out really well for us. I found that one of the main benefits of using typing actually was that it provides a form of executable documentation that enforces you to always be clear and specify what types you're accepting, what types you're returning. So there's no more thinking about what kind of tuple is this, what kind of stuff is in this tuple, because you have to say explicitly what sort of tuple it is. And because you run a tool like MyPy, Dropbox's type checker, to make sure the type annotations are correct, your documentation can't get out of date. Another benefit is that it makes it a lot easier to refactor a lot of code. I find that usually after I make a big change to this code base, the first thing I'll do is run MyPy to make sure that all the types still check out, and it will find a lot of the bugs that I encounter. For me, getting into static typing was also a way to contribute more to the open source community. It turns out typing in Python is a very young part of the ecosystem, so there's still a lot of work to be done. And it gave me a lot of opportunities to contribute to various open source projects and make a real difference in those projects. So you can see here, I contributed mostly to a project called TypeShed that has type annotations for the standard library and a few other things. And so over the last few months, I've been able to make a big difference there by adding a lot of new type annotations. I've also helped make some new features in the type system. Like this is something you can do now with named tuples in Python 3.6. You can have default values, you can override methods, you can also make docstrings. So last, if you want to learn more about type annotation, how to use them, there will be an open space to talk about it this afternoon at 2:30. At the sprints in the coming week, there will be people working on MyPy and related projects. And if you want to know more, please come talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Mark talking about music data, metadata, and more.
Hey everybody, my name is Mark. I work at Spotify, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can use the Spotify API to get data about music, metadata about music, and some other stuff. So first of all, Spotify has a lot of information. For those of you who don't know, it's a music streaming service. We have over 30 million tracks, over a few billion playlists, and millions of artists. What's nice is that Spotify makes all of this information publicly available, along with some other information. We like sharing. So You can get all this information through the Spotify Web API, which is, of course, a RESTful API. There's an interactive console on the developer website. And from it, you can get things like catalog metadata, user profiles, user playlists, audio features, and a bunch more information. It's also free, I should mention. There's no cost to use it. You do have to register through the developer portal in order to authenticate your application, but it's at no charge to you, so you might as well do it. What kind of information can you get from it? You can get albums, artists. If you're curious about tracks, you can search them, see information on them, and user profiles, playlists. You can get all of it through the API, both searching, listing, browsing. Anything that you pretty much see on the Spotify app, you can actually get through the API. One thing in particular that I really like that you don't see on the app is audio features of a track. And so Spotify does a lot of music analysis. It's pretty hard to do. I can't do it myself, but we have some engineers there who do, and you can get things like danceability, liveness, energy, time signatures, and things like that for any given track in the Spotify catalog through the API. One thing to note is that there is no audio playback from the API, sad face. However, there's a recent addition through Spotify Connect, so you can see a user is currently playing track. You can tell Spotify, hey, I want to go to the next track, pause this, play it, so on and so forth. So while it's not quite streaming through the API, it does give you a little bit of control over a user's playback. So now, how do I actually do it? Enter Spotify. Spotify is a lightweight Python library for accessing all this information through the API so that you don't have to make your own HTTP requests to get information. I'm going to show you in a second how you can actually use Spotify to get a whole bunch of information. One thing to note is you do need to go to the Spotify developer website and register for an application. You go there, you log in, click My Apps, and if the internet works, then you'll be brought to a list of your applications. You can create one. I already have one made, and that's where you're going to go in and you're going to get your API key. At the end of this month, all API calls to the API will require authentication, which is essentially just using a client ID and secret. So if you already are using Spotify, make sure that you update your code in order to do that. And now live demo time. So I have a little Python app called Spotify API Starter. You can go to MarkCodeDev or just Google Spotify API Starter. And what it allows you to do is, this is just a really lightweight app. It kind of shows you how quickly and easily you can get things like searching for a song. Python. What Python music do you have in the Spotify catalog? And if the internet works again, then we can see a whole bunch of tracks. And let's say I want Bright Side of Life, Monty Python, perfect. It'll hit the API and get you the audio features that I just showed you before. Like I said, you can get all of this information through the API. You can also see your playlists. And perhaps you want that. Oh, this is going to take a second. This is a really big playlist. And so it does pagination through it. So just a really kind of quick way to get you off the ground with the Spotify API. And so here's some handy links. That's all I want to talk to you guys about today. Thank you.
Ready? Thank you. All right, next up we have Nate talking on Tilda Town.
Hey, good morning. First, I know we're all very tired, but how many of you have ever used SSH before? Just raise your hand. Cool. A lot of you. Sweet. So usually when you use SSH, it looks a lot like this. You type in your domain, you go somewhere, you log in, Ubuntu tells you some things. You should probably restart, usually. No, not whoa. So I run who-a, and that's just me. That's just Vilmibim logged in. It's very cold. There's a cold, lonely wind blowing through this server. And so I wanted to, because I read lots of William Gibson, years ago I said, well, why don't we hang out on servers with other people? That would be really fun, right? And so I started doing that. I invited people to come hang out, and it's been 2.5 years, and 800 people have signed up. There's a few dozen of us who hang out every day. We talk about things, and I want to invite you all to this place as well. So it's called tilde.town. And when you SSH there, you get a nice MOTD. It welcomes you with pretty ASCII art and cursive. Tells you that you can do various things like chat with other people, make a little web page, and other stuff. So the kind of mission statement for Town is that it is an intentional digital community. So that means that it's intentional and that everyone who shows up is, they intend to make it a home. They intend to make it a community. You know, everybody kind of pitches in. It's for making art. It's for socializing. It's not social media, it's for socializing. Those are very different things. It's for learning, for teaching each other stuff. And it's all done via SSH with static HTML. So it's totally non-commercial. We reject decades of false technological progress, and we choose empathy and sustainable computing over, VC funding. So the kind of Town formula is 90s techno-feminist utopianism, which is a favorite topic of mine, dial-up bulletin board systems from the 90s, and GeoCities, just all kind of slammed together. So I didn't really know how to start. I've never actually spoken about Town really, in front of people. So I went into chat yesterday and said, hey, everybody, how would you describe it? So we got some colorful responses. I've highlighted some of them here. The first one is very exciting. It's the best fucking place to hang out on the internet, apparently, which I'm very proud to hear. I liked the very descriptive, all the goodness of a local pub without the smashed furniture, smoked steep walls, and clothes, although, we could do that. We could make a mud and describe that local pub. I love how diverse the town is in terms of backgrounds, preferences, and the amount of tech skill. Everybody's welcome, and it's not scary unless you want to make a horror video game. We can make weird art, we can make useful technical things, and they're very valuable at the town. So in this quick snapshot here, every single one of these people they're international, of super diverse backgrounds, different skill levels. It's a really fun place to hang out. It's a far cry from a lot of spaces on the internet. What else can you do? We have a LiveJournal clone called the Feels Engine. It's all command line. You can mirror it to a website if you want. You don't have to. We have a garden simulator where you can plant and tend to a little ASCII plant that grows into a happy big plant. They're procedurally generated. So this is my beloved common disco mature aloe. If you don't water it in 5 days, it dies. This is my third plant. I am not good with plants. We have threaded message boards, so you can talk about whatever you want. This was built from scratch by a Town user. We also show the world what we do via HTML art. So I've got a couple pages up. This is a collaboratively built ASCII art town that we're all making, tile by tile. Each one of these tiles lives in a file in somebody's home directory. We have cool things like this. I just opened these all randomly. We have a Judge Judy shrine with all sorts of stuff on there. We've got some great Unicode art, people's blogs, just cute, simple sites. We've got people teaching each other stuff about servers. We've got animated art. We've got simple little poems. Poetry is a big thing on Town. Yeah. So I'm delighted, shocked, and proud of this little place. I'm amazed that 2.5 years later, this is still a thing that people want to connect to and hang out in. So I encourage you to come to chat, say hello. I'm going to water my plant so it doesn't die. Cool. Full of water. Yeah. What else did I have to say? Oh yeah, it runs on Python. I love Python. So we provision users with Django. I replaced Puppet with Python because I'm crazy. And all of our projects are open source, beginner friendly, documented, have issues, so come contribute and sign up today. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, last talk for Lightning Talks this morning. Everyone's favorite subject from Patrick, time zone madness.
Hi, I'm Patrick. Hey, I'm Patrick O'Ban. I'm here with Puget Sound Programming Python, Puppy for short. We're a Seattle-based user group, so come by our booth, check us out. So, a lot of you may recognize this structure. This is a Hoover Dam. It sits between Nevada, Arizona, and on those two towers over there, there's two clocks. And during the summer, they show the same time, but in the winter, they show different times. Some of you may be aware about this, but so what's going on here? So Nevada's on Pacific time, Arizona's on Mountain time. Arizona, however, does not observe daylight savings time, Nevada does. All right, that's a little annoying, but not too complicated. except, well, we have Navajo Nation inside of Navajo County. That actually observes DST, but not the parts of Navajo Nation that are outside of Navajo County, and not the parts of Navajo County that are outside of Navajo Nation. So here's some more weird time zone stuff. So some time zones are political. So China, despite being long enough to cross about 5 time zone areas, actually only has 1 time zone for the entire country. Australia, this is a weird one, and you'll see a lot of these DST kind of weird things, but it gets even weirder. So during the summer, they actually have these horizontal time zones between north and south, but in the winter, they actually merge them back together. So where do we get these time zones from? So originally, of course, we used to keep time by the sun. We would, wait for noon, mark it. A lot of port towns would actually drop a ball to let ships at sea know that it was noon. That's where a ball drop at New Year's comes from, in case you've ever wondered what's up with that weirdness. All right, so I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard the trains are responsible for the time zones. Why is that? Well, every town used to set its own noon. Imagine trying to create a time schedule for your train system when every town might be 10, 20 minutes off from one another as to when they think noon is. So the railroad lines are like, enough is enough. We are going to set a standardized time system across the United States and across Europe. So UTC, GMT, what's the difference there? Well, UTC is a time standard, stands for Coordinated Universal Time. For those confused about the acronym, it's actually a compromise between the English and French versions. So GMT, it's an actual time zone. It's based on UTC minus 0. And here's some more DST funness. So it actually is, it stands for Greenwich Mean Time. So it actually uses daylight savings time, except in the UK, where they use BEST, otherwise known as Britain Standard Time. And for those of you wondering about those 2 lines there, well, the dashed line is the marker for the prime meridian, and then that solid white line over there about 100 feet to the right, to the right, is in fact the actual prime meridian, more accurately measured by GPS. So a few fun facts to go home with. So Best Korea, it offset its time zone by about 30 minutes, so it would not be on the same time as Japan. The ISS, it doesn't use Florida time, it actually uses UTC. I guess that's probably not surprising, but kind of interesting. So Samoa, not American Samoa, decided to skip an entire day just so they could be a better trade partner to China. So you'll see a lot of these political movements. So the Cayman Islands, so the last time I gave this talk, they were actually planning to start observing daylight savings time. They weren't sure when. They finally decided when they were going to do it and then changed their minds at the last minute. So just a few things to take away from this. Try not to roll your own time zone code. That's probably the biggest thing. I would usually say you should probably be storing your time data in UTC on your server. There's a few times when you probably don't want to do that, but in general, it's a great idea. And I also want to let you know about timeanddate.com. If you go there and you check out if you go to the news tab, you will see how insane this is, because it is constantly in flux. And a very quick plug, Pi Cascades next year up in Vancouver, British Columbia. Regional PyCon, so come check it out. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's give another round for all the speakers this morning. Now, if you like lightning talks, you come back tonight or tomorrow morning and see some more. Otherwise, we're going to take a little bit of a break for the keynotes to set up. Thank you.